Everybody, I'm here from EdChanger to present our corrective feedback webinar. EdChanger's mission is to scale and sustain instructional systems driven by data and analytics because, while public education in America is not failing due to our resilient educators, it often feels like a crisis. This crisis is repairable, but we must move beyond quick fixes and initiative fatigue to focus on building and maintaining systems over time. This quote, "Systems equals hope," is our motto because hope is not a strategy. Hope comes from having a logical next step in any situation. Good conferences, consultants, professional learning, and coaching can help build classroom systems, but those things are often only available to a select few. Our goal at EdChanger is for all teachers to have access to this classroom system. And coherent systems like this always provide a logical next step, giving teachers hope. For example, if my class feels contentious, I may slow down and build community and relationships. If it feels chaotic, I may install new routines. If it feels dull or students are disengaged, I may increase opportunities to respond. That idea of a logical next step brings us to our seventh practice, corrective feedback. And we define corrective feedback as coaching learners to recognize and correct academic and social errors. We use the term coaching rather than managing students because coaching involves guiding growth, while managing is enforcing rules. Why corrective feedback is important is because it prevents incorrect habits. Unchecked mistakes become ingrained and influence other students. We don't want errors to become habits, and we also don't want them to become normalized behavior. It also encourages resilience. Overcoming mistakes builds resilience because students know that they can correct an error and mistakes are surmountable. It also promotes engagement or classroom efficacy. Constant failure diminishes learning, but if I learn I can correct an error, it fosters confidence. And remember, corrective feedback isn't about pointing out errors, it's about helping students grow and reinforcing resilience. How to correct errors effectively starts with having a toolbox of strategies. Not all students respond the same way to feedback. A single correction method, like yelling out a student's name and what they're doing wrong, may work for some students but harm others. It's also important to make correction timely, succinct, constructive, and balanced. Immediate corrections prevent confusion and reinforce expectations. Succinct and constructive feedback maintains dignity and promotes growth. And balancing positive and corrective feedback enhances teacher credibility when they acknowledge what students are doing well and not just what needs correction. And then understanding the function and motivation of behavior is critical, and I'm going to talk more about that on the next slide. When looking at the purpose of behavior, the acronym Everybody Eats is helpful. There are 4 functions to behavior, and the first one, the E of eats, is escape avoid. Generally, students try to escape a situation when they're trying to maintain control. So offering an incentive or a choice that gives them control in what they're doing can support that function. Attention seeking can be supported by providing positive attention proactively. If a student needs a tangible good, using some sort of delayed gratification strategy where they have to either earn the good or take longer and longer to get it each time can be helpful. And then sensory needs, you should incorporate movement breaks or sensory tools. For these last two, I would highly suggest always having these things available in an escalation situation to cut off the escalation cycle. And then also, understanding motivation for behavior was very helpful for me as a teacher, and I loved this behavior iceberg graphic to do that. I know early in my career, I often took behavior and errors personal, like maybe students didn't like me or I wasn't a good enough teacher or they didn't like my class. But when I learned that all behaviors are caused by a complex emotional state below the surface, that helped me have a more productive attitude and depersonalize behavior and start to think, okay, how can we solve this problem? So again, the EdChanger difference is to use data and analytics and add high quality materials to support teacher growth. And we recommend that 80 to 90% of students respond to corrective behavior or corrective feedback positively, and also that 90% of unmet expectations are corrected. And we use the game on our app to do that. But I want to start by saying this data should be used only for growth and should not be evaluative. But again, we call this the Moneyball approach to instruction, using data and analytics to inform growth. And here's how the game on our app works. You log into the app, and this game is a little bit more complicated. Choose the corrective feedback game and read the instructions tab on this one, because again, it's not quite as intuitive as the rest, but it does give a lot of great data. And it's going to tell me that every time I see an error in class as a teacher, I'm going to document something on this game. If the teacher does not correct the error, I'm going to tap this needs correction tab. And that's going to show me whether or not teachers are correcting 90% of the errors that take place. If a teacher does correct an error, I'm going to press start correction, and then if the student maintains a positive behavior or the right error correction, it's going to start to count down. And so every time I add a correction, it's going to go through that process. And every time a correction disappears, that's the app capturing that corrective feedback was given and the appropriate behavior or the error was corrected and it was maintained for at least 10 seconds. So as you can probably tell, when I hit end, it's going to give me the exact data of both how many students positively responded or corrected errors based on corrective actions, which was 80% in this situation, but also how many unmet expectations were missed or ignored. And it's going to give me the opportunity to send that data to the teacher with high quality resources to support their growth. Again, this is the EdChanger difference, using data and analytics to provide teachers with optimal instructional practices. And again, our motto at EdChanger is always systems equals hope, because there's always a logical next step in every situation. The quote, "If you are not coaching it, you are allowing it to happen," should provide some hope in knowing that when I correct behavior, it supports growth and builds resilience in my students. And so, talking about logical next steps, a logical next step for you may be going to edchanger.com or finding this icon in the App Store and subscribing to our app. If you have collected data on corrective feedback and it points to moving on, you may move to our Teaching Moves to Targeted Support practice. And if your data points to refining corrective feedback, you may analyze our resource framework. And the first logical next step may be diving into our Tier 1 classroom strategies on our framework and making sure that you've implemented all of the practices on this list. The second logical next step may be to look at those targeted support strategies and find some strategies that may support individual or small groups of students in your classroom. Or also, looking at the individual component resources here, there's deeper explanations about de-escalation, understanding behavior as communication and function. But for example, I may just open this corrective feedback strategies doc and look at all of the different corrective feedback strategies and see if there's something in here that I'm not trying that I could use to refine my practice. So again, at EdChanger, our goal is to always provide a logical next step. And if you subscribe to our app, you'll have access to all of the games to collect data, all of our resources for all of the practices, with the intent of scaling and sustaining instructional systems, but more importantly, in a way that acknowledges teachers as the experts of their students in their classroom and makes them agents of their own learning. Teachers can collect this data and make decisions with our resources to decide what will be best for their students and how to grow their practice. And we'll always end with, at EdChanger, we recognize educators are essential to our community in shaping successful learning environments. Thank you for your dedication to your students and communities. We appreciate you. And then always ending with citations, the two Moneyball citations here again, the data and analytics. I like the term Moneyball approach just because that's such a great book and movie as far as revolutionizing the game of baseball with data and analytics. Function comes from this practice or this study right here. And then this idea from the Rhode Island Department of Education, I actually really like this idea because they give us the idea that the more we correct behavior or errors, sorry, that's the big point. The more we correct errors, the better. But this actually comes from a literacy study. And why I really like that is, and I already made a mistake saying this a second ago, in my job, when I hear about corrective feedback, it's almost always behavior correction. But this highlights and emphasizes the idea that it's critical to correct academic errors as well. Both of those things fall under corrective feedback. We know that if a student is doing a math problem wrong and it becomes habit to do it the wrong way, it's going to be that much harder to fix that habit later. So I do want to immediately correct both academic and social errors. So thank you for this great work. Appreciate your work.